folks, Chris Voss here from the chrisvossshow.com, the chrisvossshow.com. Coming to the blog post we want to take and share with you, of course, review the latest in social media and technology. We're going to compare two of some phones that have come out, and these are the AT&T Sony Xperia Ion, and this is a phone that's come out over the last few months and stuff. We'll get that going. And then we also have the Virgin Mobile HTC One V. A lot of people have been asking me a comparison between these two phones. And of course, we reviewed a number of phones from AT&T. Thanks to AT&T for providing the phones for us. And Virgin Mobile provides the phones for us on the Virgin Mobile phone service. So you can see both of them here as they take and boot. And you can see how they boot up and do their stuff. Now, the phones are pretty different in their build, in the different details they have. We'll get into that, and we'll compare the two to see what they are. Across the top, with AT&T, what you're looking at is you're looking at, of course, a 2-year contract, where with the 2-year contract, you're going to be locked in, getting the phone at a discount or free. I'm not sure whichever pricing it's at when you see this video. But what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to get the phone for that price, but you're locked in for 2 years. You pay a pretty good price to be able to get this nice of a phone for free. Now, with the Virgin Mobile product, what you're going to be looking at is a flat rate that you pay for unlimited phone, text, and data. And the nice thing is you do pay a little bit more to buy the phone up front, but you're not locked into a contract. You're not locked into a yearly thing that you have to take and deal with, or bi-yearly. 2-year thing, I should say. So those are the big differences there. Now, with the HTC, we've updated this from when it came from Virgin Mobile. This is now running on the HTC Sense 4.0, and it's also running on the HTC the Android 4.03 system. It doesn't come this way, but once you get the phone, it'll automatically say, okay, you want to take and do these upgrades, and you can go ahead and process the upgrades. They're very quick, simple, and easy to install. Didn't have any problems with it. There's a few other things that do update on the phone, like the Play Store and stuff that comes with the 4.03 update. So very nice once you get that update on there, because we really like the 4.0 series of OS from Android. Now, with the Sony Xperia Ion, what you're looking at is you're looking at Gingerbread software. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Gingerbread is. Now, Gingerbread is a little bit behind the ice cream sandwich updates. Let's go ahead and see if we can't find where I can show you what the latest is that we're doing. We're constantly checking for this phone because we're really excited to actually see what it's going to update to. Once it updates, it's rumored that it will get the Android ice cream sandwich update, but it's not confirmed, so it's a little up in the air there. But it's running on Android version 2.37 is the version that we're running on this, so that you can compare apples to oranges between the two different phones. So let's give you a rundown of the two different phones. Let's talk about some of the aspects. Let's start with the HTC One V and get an idea as to what this takes to do. Now, some of these specs vary from carrier to carrier, so we're just going to cover how this is set up to our understanding on the Virgin Mobile network. Now, you can find the phone at virginmobileusa.com. That's virginmobileusa.com. What you're looking at with the phone, it runs on a 3G network, does not have 4G. So 3G network, and it's got Wi-Fi on it, of course. Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich, and like I say, it is updated now to the latest 4.03. It's got a 3.7-inch touchscreen. It's got a 5-megapixel flash camera and camcorder on the back. It does come with Beats audio. If you're familiar with the HTC product, they own an interest in Beats, and when you plug earphones in, you get a much higher quality of experience, in our experience also, in your quality of your sound and everything else. It runs on a 1 gigahertz processor. It's got a height of 4.7 inches, a width of 2.3 inches, a depth of 0.36 inches, and a weight of 4.5 ounces. Screen size, once again, 3.7 touchscreen. Talk time is 12 hours, standby 15 days. 1 gigahertz processor, expandable memory to 32 gigabytes. And we'll show you that here in a second. There's a place in the back where you can open it up and be able to upgrade it. Okay, it's got a Super LCD screen, so that's what's on the screen there. Resolution is 800 by 480 pixels, and it's a capacitive touchscreen type, so that's important to know. There's definitely difference in the quality of screens from cell phone to cell phone. So a processor on it is Qualcomm. It's a Snapdragon S2, as we mentioned, 1 gigahertz speed. It's got a RAM size of 512 megabytes. Internal size of storage is 4 gigabytes. You can have external storage on top of that, as we mentioned, up to 32 gig, and micro SD. The flash is LED. It will do 720p video resolution at 30 frames per second. So very good that way. And I think that pretty much covers all the details we're going to do. It does have a 1500 milliamp battery in it, so it's going to last you a pretty good time. That's actually, given for the size of the phone, that's actually pretty good for the battery. So now let's switch over to the Sony Xperia Ion. Let's talk about some of the details of what are in this device. Okay, so now with the Sony, what we're looking at is a 12 megapixel camera, and it's got a 3D sweep panorama mode. We really don't notice it that much when we played with the Sony, and we've had it for a while. But it does have a 12 megapixel camera. We've been very impressed with the camera in it. We found the camera is very comparable to iPhone quality on the iPhone 4S. It definitely rivals the iPhone 4S. We're not sure why the pictures are a little bit different than the iPhone 4S. We actually get the 12 megapixels on the Sony to pixelate quicker than the pictures on the iPhone 4S. So we're somewhat suspecting the quality of what 12 megapixel actually is on the Sony, but it is a good phone and it does take great pictures and video. It has 16 times digital zoom, HD video capture. It's got rear facing 1080p, front facing 720p that it will take and do. It's got a front-facing 1 megapixel camera, and by comparison, the HTC does not have a front-facing camera. So that's definitely a factor if you're maybe wanting to do video calls, Skype calls, different things of that nature. It's got a 1900 milliamps, a little bit bigger than the HTC One V. It'll give you up to 10 hours talk time, 16 days standby time. Its size is 5.24 inches by 2.7 inches by 0.46 inches. Its weight is 4.9 ounces. It has internal memory storage of up to 16 gigabytes and expandable memory storage up to 32 gigabytes, and that's through micro SD, which we'll show you here in a bit. Now, like we said, it runs on the Android Gingerbread system. It is rumored and widely speculated by a lot of different sources that it will move to ice cream sandwich when still has not been announced, and it's anyone's guess at this point if it will happen. It's been a couple months, the phone's been out at this point. It does have a display size of 4.6 and it's 1280 by 720 resolution, 16 million colors in its pixels. So very beautiful, large screen. That's one thing we really like about it. It's got a LED backlit LCD capacitive touchscreen on it, and scratch resistant glass, and runs on the Sony Mobile Bravia engine that goes into the guts of it. So it's a pretty great phone that way. Let's talk about some other details of the phone and what goes into it. Now, you're looking at a dual core processor on this phone of the Snapdragon 1.5 gigahertz. So you're looking at that, and I think that pretty much covers all the details we want to take and cover on here. Now, I'm getting two different reports where I have some sites saying that the Sony Xperia has a 1.3 front-facing camera, but the AT&T site said differently. So since this is an AT&T phone, we're going to go with their data. So if you think differently and think I'm wrong, well, contact AT&T. So both phones, let's take a look at them individually as we break them down. And of course, you can get the AT&T phone at AT&T.com. Now, the HTC phone for the One V, it's very thin, very slender phone, very thin phone when it comes down to it. One of my initial impressions are it's very easy to carry in the hand and be able to manipulate the device. It has this kind of bent ridge to it, which is pretty interesting. One thing I found myself doing is holding the phone this way, and it actually is very comfortable to do that. Since it's so small, it's very convenient to just use this bottom part as a brace and a hold position. So that's been my first impression of the phone. I do like how small and compact it is. It's very thin, perfect for someone who doesn't want to be carrying around a giant phone. So let's take a look at what we've got along the front. Along the front with the menus, we have your home button, which will bring you to your home, which is right here in the bottom. We have a button that will take you to what the most recent apps are that you've had open, so that you can go back to those. One thing that's interesting is with the HTC line on other phones that we've had, once they've upgraded to 4.04 Android, they've changed this button here to where you can switch it back and forth between, you can press and hold to either decide if you want a menu to pop up or if you want recent apps like you see here to pop up. So hopefully it does come to that update soon where you get 4.04 on it. I think it probably will. Given it has 4.03, it should be upgradable to that. But definitely would make a difference, and it's much nicer if you do see this phone after we do this video come up with the 4.04 update with having that menu experience. Where some phones, like you may notice on the Xperia Ion, they have a menu button where it's built into the OS with HD Sense with the HTC One V. So you also have the back button that will take you back to pretty much where you are. Let's walk around the body some more. Now on the bottom we have pretty much simple microphone area. Across the top we have a area where you can see there's the speaker. This is your main speaker for pretty much everything. Let's take a look at the top. On the top, what we're looking at is a earphone button, and we have a power button. Down the right side, what we're looking at is a rocker button for the volume. Okay, very simple and easy here on this device. Along the other side, we just have a charger hole to be able to charge the device, sync it, all that good stuff. Looking at the back of the device, looks like we got a little bit of fingerprinting. So looking at the back of the device, we have an area for the camera. That's your 5 megapixel camera, and we also have a flash. Okay. On the bottom, we have the curved bottom. You can see here the logo with the Beats Audio. What this will take and do is easily pop off. And from here, what you can do is you can take and put a micro SD card in here to take and be able to utilize that. Now the rest of the case does not come off, so you can't separate this and change out batteries if you have other spare batteries. I suppose if you really wanted to unseal and open the case, you could, but it's a unibody at this point, so it doesn't have the ability to switch batteries if you run out of battery juice. Okay, so getting that back together. Now the one thing you also do have is you have a speaker here in the bottom. I'm not sure how well that's going to come out on our video because it's very dark. We're getting some light reflection. So you can see here there's a speaker on the bottom for your audio output. So you have that as a calling feature. Let's take a look at the body of the Sony Xperia Ion and get an idea as to comparatively how it looks. Now across the front of it with menu-wise, what we're looking at is we have a menu button, so this will bring up menus for us when we're in different programs, etc., etc. We have a home button that will bring us to the home. We have a back button, and we have a search button so that we can search for whatever we want to take and have. Across the top, we have a speaker area for conversations with phone calls. We also have the front-facing camera. You can see there in the little hole there behind the glass. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the outside of the body. You've got down the right side here, you've got the power button. You've got a rocker for your volume up and down. You also have a camera button, so you've got a shutter button that you can take and click on to take photos. That works really well for you. Across the top, you've got a centralized earphone plug, which is kind of nice having that in the center. Depending upon you're left-handed or right-handed, that sometimes they can get in your way with all the different things. So it is nice to have that in the center. Down the left-hand side, it has HDMI output. That's one of the features of this phone that's very cool, is you can plug it directly into an HD TV, and there's some features of that we'll show you here in a second, where you can actually have almost an AirPlay session that looks kind of like a mini iPad, if you will, with the Sony on its side, and you can take and plug it into your HD TV and experience your phone through that. Now there's also, of course, a charger place to take and charge your phone also, so you have a little bit of both. Very cool in what it does there. Along the bottom, there's nothing much to see here except a microphone hole. Okay. Now what you can do is pop off the top. The top pops off, and you've got your SIM card in here. You also have a place for the micro SD card. If you want to expand the memory, you can put it into here and utilize it. Coming down the back, you're looking at the camera. The flash is centered below it. There's a very small speaker system that's right there. It's very small and pretty hard to see for that matter. But it also has the logo there on the bottom. So that's pretty much what you're looking at with the Sony Xperia when it comes to the body in and of itself. Let's take a look at both phones side by side, and we'll look at some of the features and stuff that they take and do. Okay, so now let's line up the screens side by side so that you can see a comparison. You can see the screen on, of course, the Sony Xperia Ion is much taller in length, and of course, let's take a look at it side by side. At least for the most part, we'll get as close to this as we can with just the eye. You can see here, of course, the Sony Xperia has a much wider screen. I do love the screen on the Sony Xperia Ion. It's a very nice, big, beautiful screen, great for watching videos. Now, the HTC is a great phone given its size. You can see here that you've got a lot of screen size to work with the Android iOS, or I should say OS system that's on it. So you do have that, and there's, of course, benefits and balances to both phones. So let's take a look at a few different elements. Now, with the Sony Xperia Ion, you're looking at a limited, it's not an infinite scroll that goes all the way around. You have some easy ways to adjust very quickly your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, turn things on and off, sound on and off with buttons. With the notification, you're looking at pull down, of course, like you can do. This is still the gingerbread notification system, so it's pretty featureless. And not as good as the Android 4.0 systems that are on there in the HTC Sense. In our minds, we actually find that it's fairly limited to when you're doing widgets customization and setting up your screens that you want to take and launch from. It's much more limited in its presentation of the widgets, I should probably say. It's much harder to go through and peruse them, etc., etc. Let's take a look at the HTC One V. Now, with the One V, you're also looking at where you have a limited run of swipe. You don't have the infinite swipe. And, of course, you do have the ability to adjust the widgets. It's got a very nice widget presentation and easily defined widgets, all that good stuff that comes with the HTC One. The other thing is you get the nice notifications, and I tend to really, really like the latest system with the ice cream sandwich. So you have the ability to see all your notifications, clear them very easily, get to settings very easily, and, of course, adjust most of your features. And the features settings that you can see here are much more cooler in their icons and everything else that goes into it. Let's take you into settings on our Sony Xperia Ion. You can see here that's much more plain, kind of personality-less. So looking from this area, and then of course being able to quickly touch on hot buttons to change things, where in here you've got to go much deeper into call settings, or we actually want to go into wireless networks to be able to turn those on and off. You've got to go into a few more steps to be able to turn on Bluetooth, on and off, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. So those are some main differences in the menus. Now, of course, some of this will change if after this video they do update the Sony Xperia Ion to the Android system. So keep in mind if you do see those changes happen in the future, that will nullify some of these things that we're seeing in the Sony. So hopefully they do make those changes, but when it comes down to the OS, I do like the HTC phone better because the Android system, of course, with the Ice Cream Sandwich 4.03 is almost the latest. They just came out with the Jelly Bean update. So you do have that element, which is going to be a lot nicer. But compared to the Sony, it's much more advanced in its OS system. I'll give you a show here of the setups. Now, as I mentioned before, with the OS that it's running on, the 4.03 OS that the HTC One V is running on, it does not have a normalized menu system that's down here. It has it throughout the system, and you have to go find the button, push it, and then you can get the menu aspects that you're taking and looking at. Okay, so with 4.04, if it does update, which I imagine it would on the HTC One V, you will get the ability to customize this button as a menu item, or at least that's what we've seen with the other HTC One updates. So you can see how the phone dialing system works. You've got a much smaller screen here to work with, but it's very quick, easy, and active to be able to take and utilize it. You've got much bigger buttons over here, of course, when you're dialing with the Sony Xperia Ion. You can see the call log setups. Let's see if we can't get into the other aspects of where we want to be. Call history. As you can see here, you don't have some of the nice menu items that you do on the other thing. We'll take a look at some of our contacts here. And looks like this is going to show us, looks like we don't have our AT&T phone book set up in this, so we'll see what it pulls down. But you can see the outlay if you're very familiar with the Android Ice Cream updates. It's pretty formatted across all the different devices as to what they do and how they do it. We're going to go and skip out of that because we don't feel that's really that important. So you can see some of the different aspects. Both run on Play Store so that you can have easy access to downloading apps, installing them, all that good stuff. And things seem to move fairly fast for both these devices. Of course, depending upon your internet download and upload ability. The one aspect here, though, is the HTC One V only has 3G on it, where the AT&T Sony Xperia Ion is running on 4G. So you're probably going to get faster downloads from that aspect of it. So you can see some of the main menus here we're looking at with Google Play. So let's get into some of the other aspects in benchmarking, cameras, and everything else. Okay, so let's take a look at speed tests we're going to run. We'll run through a number of benchmarking stuff here. We've run 5 to 6 speed tests on each device, and we'll show you the results that we've gotten on the logs. We run 5, and for some reason we end up with 6 on the Sony. Now, bear in mind, we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here, but we do want to give you the data and information for you for your buying experience, because the HTC One V runs on 3G, where the Sony runs on 4G. So it's a little hard to say, well, one phone's better than the other, etc., etc. Obviously, the 4G is going to outpace it for its numbers. But you can see here, these are the numbers with the AT&T phone that you can find for the 4G network on their service. And these are the 3G download, upload speeds you can find with the Virgin Mobile. Okay, so that'll give you a difference there. Okay, so now what we've done is we've run the Android app, the amzn.to benchmarking app. And so you can see here some of the differences in the speeds and overall scores that the two phones get comparative to CPU performance, etc., all that other good stuff. So there's the data you can take and see. If you want to compare this data to your current phone, you can download that app and the other apps that will feature in this series, and you can take and test your benchmarks out comparatively to these phones to determine if you want to purchase them. Okay, here's another test that we're using the A&E benchmarks for the native and Java scripting that you can take and see here. You can see some of the differences in the quality and speeds and all that good stuff. Let's take a look at some of the graphs that you can see here of the performance of different phones and how they match up comparatively. So you can see our devices down here in this case and here, and you can see the Java loading and operations there. Okay, so here's another benchmarking using the Geekbench Score app, You can take a look at that and then download it on your current system. You can see the different scores of integers, floating points, memories. This is basically running through CPU processing for the system, etc., etc. You can see some of the integer performance here that it comes down to. Let's go ahead and bring those up. There we go. You can see some performance scales there. And then we can see more as we page down to the floating point performance with these devices. You can see those there. And then we can compare the memory performance with the memory that's in here. And then, of course, now these are without any sort of SD expansion cards, micro SD expansion cards. And you can also see comparatively the stream performance between the two. Obviously, the Sony is much faster and has a whole lot more capacity, given it's kind of an apples to oranges experience in the quality and the build of these two different phones. But this is a comparison video, so that's what we're going to do, is compare the two of them. Okay, so in doing a GPS test to see how many satellites each device picks up, you can get a good idea here as to the difference of how many different satellites it's picking up on each phone and how well it's performing in its graphical bars. So it gives you an idea. You can see here that it tends to vary a little bit between the two different phones. It's showing there's more in view, of course, that it's picking up with the GPS on the Sony in views that it's picking up with different satellites, but you can see here the difference in performance in comparison from the two. So it's picking up 12 in the HTC One V. It's picking up 21 in the Sony Xperia Ion. Okay, so in doing a billion counter test to take and determine how fast the processor can count to a billion, you can see here it was 36.675, and then some decimal breakdown in seconds. Comparatively with the to count to a billion on the HTC One V, you're looking at 57.206 seconds. Okay, so let's take a look here. We've got, with both phones, we've done a display test to test the displays on both of them. The standard pixels per second we achieved on the Sony was 365.97, and full screen boxes 1280 by 720, of course. Elapsed time was 13,457 milliseconds. The megapixels on the HTC were 48,999, and standard view 800 by 480, of course. Elapsed time was 112 milliseconds, so you can get an idea. Now keep in mind, of course, you're working with a whole lot more milliseconds, more pixels on the Sony, so therefore there is a lot more to process there. Okay, so now let's take a look using the GL Benchmark 2.1.5 Egypt standard test. What we're looking at is, after it ran its test, it pulled on the Sony 63 frames at 30 frames per second. With the HTC One V, we're looking at 3,465 frames at 31 frames per second, so it actually pulled pretty fast. Now let's take a look at the camera. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference between these two different devices and how they operate. You've got different menus, of course, between them, especially with the Windows OS that's there. You have the ability to quickly turn on and off the flash, change it to automatic, etc., etc. You've got your settings menu where you can go in, and of course you can adjust image resolution, video quality, review duration. You can adjust your self-timer on and off, your image adjustments, ISO, white balance, continuous shooting, camera options, which you can see here, face detection, auto smile capture, widescreen geotagging photos. You also, of course, have your video options, which you can record with audio. You can turn that on or off. You got your camera interface, which will give you a grid, auto upload, and reset to default. Of course, you can take and do. You do have the zoom capabilities where you can swipe this back and forth. Down here, what you're going to take and have is several different ways you can choose your videos. So you can have auto, HDR, panorama, portrait, landscape, whiteboard, low light situations. Basically, you can really customize your experience. Up here, by touching this little opaque thing, you can get different effects that you can take and add in. This is what you normally find with the HTC product and of course the Android updates combined. You've got two different buttons that you can push here. You've got the shutter button for your photograph for still camera pictures. You've got the video button below that you can take and click on to get video. Okay, so let's take a look at the Sony now. We'll take a look at the camera on the Sony. Now, I'm not that excited about the Sony Camera experience. It does take really good pictures and really good video, but the menus, comparatively to the new updates with ice cream sandwich, or leave some to be desired, but you still have some of the same sort of formats here. You can see in choosing between different ways that you want to set up your camera shooting. You do have the 3D sweep panorama. I've really never used that much. You've got different landscape, of course, here that you can also take and do. You can adjust exposures up and down. It is kind of nice to have that graph way where you can adjust the exposure up and down depending upon how you want to take and do it. You can, of course, adjust your flash, etc., and all that good stuff. Now, you switch between camera mode and video mode in this format here. You can also take and use your menu to get into the different things where you can change resolution, self-timer, smile detection, all that good stuff, geotagging, metering, data storage, everything to take and control it, shutter sound, etc., etc. The other thing you also, of course, have that you don't have with the HTC One is you have a shutter button where you can push this button to get your start your videos, stop your videos, start and stop your photos. So let's take a look comparatively as to some of the different videos that we're going to get. Now, in low light, this is going to be the experience we'll be looking at here first with the with both cameras. Actually, let's go ahead and see if we can pull this up a little bit more to get the angle we're looking for. And what you'll see here is that the camera in low light is much better on the AT&T. There is a lot more clarity to the camera in low light on the HTC, so it's interesting how that compresses in looking at the two. Let's go ahead and swipe. Okay, and we'll take a look here as to video. Now, the one thing we've noticed with the HTC products of late is what they've been doing is they've been cranking up the yellow, greens, and blues in the HTC product, basically creating kind of a false, a brighter experience, if you will, to their cameras, which I think is their angle. They want to make it seem like it's brighter. The only problem is in certain environments, it tends to really bring out the yellows and, of course, the blues and the greens, as you can see here, which give it kind of a fake coloring. Now, you can adjust the camera settings to offset that. That's another aspect, of course, that you can take and do. So, if you're uncomfortable with that, you can take and adjust it. Let's take a look at taking a picture in low light. This is a picture in low light. You can see we have, with the Sony, much less camera blowback from the flash and a very much clearer picture than we can with the HTC. Let's take a look at another picture here. So many cameras swiping one way or the other. Here, once again, you can see this is more the natural color up here on the Sony of my floor in my kitchen, whereas comparatively, you can see here once again, got lots of more yellowing with the HTC. It's not an accurate portrayal of the pictures there. So much more clarity and quality of this. Now, given the camera that is on the Sony is a much better camera, so you do have that element of it there. So that's the comparison between the two different things. They both take very good photos for the settings on both the phones, so they do fairly well on everything. Let's go ahead and get back to our menu. The one thing that I'd run into with the Sony is, and you've probably seen this throughout this review, is the touch area for being able to hit menu stuff is a bit sensitive, and you've got to get it right on, and it actually hovers a bit above the button. And it's been a problem since I've started. I don't know if it's the particular unit that we have, but we noticed that there's kind of a certain area higher that you have to hit it to be able to get the results that you would take and want. I'm not pressing the home button to get to the home because we're obviously there, but I'm just kind of showing you what you have to do. That's one thing that's been kind of thing that we haven't been too excited with the AT&T Sony on that feature. Now, given when you're doing playback, you of course have the Beats audio that you can have on the HTC One V, where you do not have that sort of sound exposure and quality and adjustment that you can take and make with the AT&T Sony Xperia Ion. So this pretty much concludes our comparison between the two phones. We'll probably do some different breakdown videos on top of this. Browsers, be sure to check back for those. We'll also be reviewing some other Virgin Mobile phones and T-Mobile phones and some other things. Be sure to check in the box on the Chris Voss Show or on YouTube for those videos. Comparatively overall, we like the phones. They kind of are apples to oranges. If you want a small, inexpensive, don't pay too much, keep things inexpensive for you, the Virgin Mobile phone is a great HTC phone. We'll actually be comparing it with the LG Optimus Prime, and we'll be comparing it with the HTC Evo V 4G that is also from Virgin Mobile, so be sure to check that out. Thank you, Virgin Mobile, USA.com, for providing these phones for us, and AT&T, thank you for providing the AT&T phone. We really do love the Sony product. We're really excited and interested to see how cool this phone is once it comes out with the Android, or if it comes out with the Android 4.04 product. So stay tuned. We'll be updating our reviews and the phones and videos at that time if that update is forthcoming. So be sure to check it out. We do like the AT&T phone. It's really up to you if you want to kind of dial back into the gingerbread OS, where nowadays if you want to buy a good phone, you can be getting the latest Android, which is what I'd probably highly recommend. But if you do want a good phone, the one aspect that you've seen in this video is there is the HDMI output, where you can have that experience of laying on its side, and you can basically work it through a HDMI TV, which is very cool if you like that experience. There's some different features that they have with the Xperia Ion, where they have different places that you can take and put it, to take and hold it, to take and charge it, different other aspects that they're building around the product, if you will. So be sure to check those out on the Sony site. And thanks for coming by the ChrisVossShow.com. Be sure to check back often. Chris Voss tested, Chris Voss approved.